Hi everyone, thanks for watching Trexpat. In this episode, I'm going to share with you my reflections on traveling during the pandemic and how you can do it too. Since the pandemic started, I've spent 18 out of the 24 months traveling. One of the most common things I hear from people talking about the pandemic is, I can't wait to travel again. But it's like, the flights haven't stopped, the border checks haven't stopped, the visa issuing process hasn't stopped. It's the same old thing, there's just no tourists. That means your flight's gonna be half empty, that means your hotel's gonna be half empty, that means all the people in the tourism industry are gonna treat you really well because they are happy to have just someone to serve. That means there's not gonna be 500 people in front of your Instagram photo blocking it. That means everything's gonna be cheaper and everything's gonna be easier to book. So let's get into the details. Is it safe? Yes, because there's no one there. So it's built-in social distancing. Well, where should I go? Good question. So if you're like me and have a list of 150 places you want to go, you should work down that list in priority of where you want to go and where it's possible to go right now. And that will require some research. But I'm guessing that if you're watching this video, you've probably spent the last 2 years doing travel research to all the places you want to go. So I'm pretty sure you're pretty good at research at this point. Surprisingly, most places are open. So if we start with North America, then we have the United States. They had a travel ban in place for a lot of people, but they've recently done away with that travel ban. So then once you meet those requirements, then you only have to have an antigen or PCR test 24 hours or less before you fly. Easy, right? Well, considering that PCR test results take 24 hours to get the results, then you have 0 hours if you have COVID to rearrange your flights, at which point you've probably already checked in, and therefore your flight arrangements would be non-refundable and you have to rebook a whole ticket. Canada can be a little bit more difficult depending on what country you come from. One country that's not difficult is Mexico. Going to Mexico is like going to Mexico in a 2019 time capsule because there they have never had a lockdown and they're not stopping. It's like spring break, full steam ahead, haven't canceled one wet t-shirt contest. Poncho, the guy with the sombrero in the club, is still pouring tequila shots down girls' throats like nothing has happened. Then going down, Colombia, completely open. Brazil, the president's doesn't believe in COVID, so that's always going to be open. Other South American countries can be more tricky. Most have required PCR tests and then may or may not require vaccination. Europe is surprisingly easy depending on the country. Asia varies very widely. So there's some countries like Bangladesh where they've literally just stopped issuing visas. And there's some countries like Sri Lanka which are completely open, you just need a PCR test and vaccination. Then there's other countries that are basically closed, but kind of not, like Indonesia. They'll allow Europeans to go to Bali only, and they have to have proof of a prepaid hotel for their entire stay. Then there's countries like China, which that's basically no one is let in or out. And then there's like Japan, where they just bar all foreigners, like it's the Shogun era again. So yeah, basically, if you want to go somewhere, you need to check the requirements. Where I like to go is IATA website. I'll put a link in the description of this video of where you can find that, and it has every country you can click on. Another thing to think about is what kind of restrictions are going to be in place in the country you're going to. Italy, which you had to wear a mask at all times, even outside, even on the beach, and to go to the beach, you had to pre-book using a QR code on some Italian government website and reserve a spot on the beach. I also booked kind of last minute because things could change very quickly. So I suggest booking your flight outgoing last minute and not booking a return flight, or booking a round trip with a flexible return. I've had several cases where I booked a round trip and then my travel plans changed because of the virus or because of this and that. And so the last flight was wasted and I had to book another one-way ticket anyways. I highly suggest you book flights with 0 or 1 max stop. The reason why is things could change and you could not be allowed to do that flight. Should I get vaccinated, and how to get my PCR tests? I mean, I don't want to get political, and I think you know the benefits and the risks of the COVID-19 vaccine. So my suggestion is just get it. It will make traveling much easier. How do you get PCR tests? So usually if you're going to a country, it's not hard to figure out how to do a PCR test or an antigen test in your home country. However, if there's a requirement by your home country to get a PCR test or antigen test before you return back to that country, that can get more tricky. So you need to make sure you understand how and where you can get that test on demand in your country that you're traveling to. So what should I pack? Take extra masks. You can usually buy them locally depending on where you're going, but you definitely need them for travel. And some airlines require a surgical mask, not a reusable cloth mask. But then there's the positive stuff. I'm seriously so spoiled. If there's like another person on my beach, I'm like, what? Why? What? Can you imagine Piazza San Marco, Venice, empty except for pigeons, and Venice filled with only Venetians? It's like mind-boggling. I thought I was in some apocalyptic film, but I actually saw it with my own 2 eyes. I know this was supposed to be a motivational video to inspire you to go traveling despite the pandemic, but it kind of just sounds like I'm giving you reasons why you shouldn't go traveling. And maybe that's true. Yeah, you know what? On second thought, actually forget everything I just said and just stay at home and travel only when everyone else travels, when this pandemic is over and things open up. So then in the meantime, I can enjoy my empty beaches, empty museums, empty hotels, and cheaper prices. I want to hear what you have to say. If you've been traveling in the pandemic or thinking about traveling in the pandemic and have some insights or other tips, please write it in the comments. Thanks.